While it was already rumored to be the case, Microsoft has finally confirmed that Sea of Thieves, their sort of Pirates MMO thing, which I'm still not sure if it's an MMO or just a multiplayer dynamics thing. I don't know. We'll find out when it ends up actually releasing. But they've actually confirmed it will be cross-platform play between the Xbox and PC on launch day, no less. And so this doesn't mean there's going to be any parity issues. They're literally going to be playing inside the same world with the same players. So if you have friends on either console, or maybe you have the game, because I believe it's going to be a Play Anywhere title, so you can actually buy it on Xbox and PC, and then have it, or buy it on one and then have it on the other as well for basically free. I mean, you own the same game, since it's technically the same game. We'll talk about it in a minute. Anyways, Michael here with another topic video. So Sea of Thieves is going to be cross-platform play, and this is something that I've been saying should happen for a very long time with not only Sea of Thieves, but literally everything. And this is something they've been kind of looting around since they ended up announcing the game. I remember it was actually quite a few years ago when they announced that Rare was working on Sea of Thieves. They're like, hey, by the way, we're working on this title. It looks really cool. And it was a pirate MMO thing. And I'm like, that's cool. I like pirate games. I don't think there's enough of them, or at least not enough good ones. There are some lower quality ones, but I've never really found one that's like, oh yeah, this is the pirate game of the century. I haven't really found one of those unless you're looking for just the kind of boat and trading mechanics. That genre kind of has a lot of them, but they're all in the strategy. Anyways, more on topic. So it's going to be finally cross-platform play, and I think that's a really big deal. And this is not necessarily surprising to anyone because they originally announced it along with a bunch of console exclusives. However, they were like, this one's going to be on PC. So out from the get-go, we've known it was going to be on PC, and a lot of people kind of speculated, oh, maybe they're going to try and do their cross-platform play. And that is definitely the case. And so basically what they're doing is they're making it so that their ecosystem is basically just PC and console. I think they're done doing console exclusive type stuff, especially with games like Sea of Thieves, and I think it's going to be required for them to actually have any success with the titles like these. So you end up looking at Sea of Thieves and you're like, all right, well, how much of the console market is actually going to stick with this game, and how much of the PC market is actually going to stick with this game? Now, one downside a lot of people have been saying is like, oh, you're going to have to use the Windows Store because basically it's a Windows game, which is going to, unfortunately, kind of limit the amount of player base it can get, which I think is sad because the Windows Store, it's not perfect. It shouldn't be something that kind of eliminates the possibility of somebody even playing a game. The whole idea that a game's done on Steam should never be played by anybody is kind of a ridiculous idea considering the amount of problems with Steam to begin with. So that's going to kind of limit them a little bit. However, when you actually look at the market as a whole, if they end up getting all these different players onto a single server, which is what they're saying you're going to be playing inside the same world with the same players and everything. So if you're playing on Xbox, you're literally going to be playing right next to PC players, or if you're playing on PC, you're literally going to be right next to Xbox players. So it's actually going to be kind of nice. And I think this parity sort of thing, like it's going to be the exact same game with the exact same mechanics and everything, and I assume the exact same settings. We'll talk about that in a minute. But that's actually really, really important because we've seen in the past a lot of these sort of multiplayer MMOs kind of die on one singular platform. We actually saw those with Gears of War, which does have cross-platform play on PC and Xbox, except it's only in the sort of multiplayer aspect that is the co-op. And so basically, if you want to go into co-op story or the kind of horde mode, I believe it's what it's called, you can actually do some cross-platform play. However, the competitive scene on PC ended up dying immediately because basically oh god, there's a giant plant. Okay. But they ended up kind of dying off because basically nobody was playing it on PC for the competitive aspect because we have a lot of competitive shooters. However, there's still people on PC that would love to go into a competitive match. Every once in a while you'll go into the queue and it'll be like, oh yeah, there's like 2 people looking. And like, it would be nice for them to be able to find a game, even if they had to go up against console players. Now, the reason they did that is for the sort of advantage that PC players could end up getting from having a mouse and keyboard. They said that that's a big deal when it comes to the competitive game, and I think Microsoft is mostly leaving this up to developers to kind of decide, as they are kind of allowing them to be like, all right, well, would this make sense? However, I do think they're going to be pushing towards this cross-platform play on most of their games. They are doing the whole Play Anywhere title. A lot of the console-only games that were being announced, especially around the Sea of Thieves launch, has actually come out on PC now, and some of them even released on Steam. They've actually gone away from doing just Windows Store exclusives. Now, it does seem like anything that's going to be using Xbox Live is going to be through the Windows Store, and I think that's because it has to run through the Universal Windows app. And if you don't know anything about the architecture, you can actually end up looking it up and everything. It's actually a fairly cool system to where it's a universal app that will run on both Xbox and PC and Windows Phone and yada yada. And so it's probably using that API to run all the Windows Live stuff. So basically any multiplayer games that they run through, like Gears of War or Sea of Thieves in the future, is probably going to have to be through the Windows Store, which is a little bit unfortunate because, once again, people are kind of limited on that. They're like, oh yeah, well, I won't buy it if it's not on Steam, which I think is a ridiculous idea. I just kind of locked myself in an animation and died. That's fine. Just go back to the camp ship. And so that's actually pretty cool, though, is the fact that they are going to have this multi-platform thing kind of going on. Now, I do have a few concerns about this, and one of them is going to be balance. Now, the game looks to be a third-person action game, at least from the footage that we've seen, and so it's not like it's going to be necessarily one of those things that's dominated by a singular platform. However, it does come into concerns with things like aiming. For first-person shooters or third-person shooters, they've always kind of made it so that the competitive scene is always going to be certain kind of console locked. And I think this is a problem that should end up going away in the future, because I feel like consoles should allow you to use a mouse and keyboard, which I believe they do. At least some of them do. I know the PlayStation can. I don't know about the Xbox One. I don't know if they have a mouse and keyboard compatibility on that one. I know they have keyboard compatibility, but I don't know if they have actual mouse compatibility yet. But rather, they should end up adding that sort of thing. But they also don't want to make it so it's like, oh, well, the majority of players don't actually have a mouse and keyboard hooked up to their Xbox, which that would make sense, but at the same time, that's kind of unfortunate. And the fact that they are kind of leaving this up to the developers seems to be one of those cases to where we could end up seeing a lot of things in the future to where we have games that have certain modes that are cross-platform play while other ones aren't. However, Sea of Thieves is not supposedly supposed to be that, and I think that's a push in the good direction. It does have some balance concerns, though. If I'm playing on PC, let's say you're using a Buccaneer weapon or something like that, like you've got long-range aiming, it would be a concern to have it so that the PC players would have an advantage by using a mouse and keyboard. Or let's say, since it's a third-person action game, maybe they're in a melee duel and the controls on like the console end up making more sense with a keyboard or not with a keyboard and mouse, but rather with a gamepad. And so they're designed around that sort of idea. And this could also make some balance concerns in the other direction. There's also performance concerns as well. If the game doesn't actually perform perfectly fine on console, or let's say there's on PC configurations that it doesn't, whatever, I'm going to say that's the configuration of the PC and not actually the game's fault, unless there's some major performance issues on PC. Let's say they actually have terrible optimization. But assuming optimization is fine, this won't be a problem. But if any platform is having performance problems, this can actually affect the gameplay as well, such as frame rate. If the game is running at 30 FPS on console, but then it runs at 60 FPS on PC, the players playing at 60 FPS are going to have an advantage. And would this go into networking as well? Would this actually end up having a kind of frame rate lock because of this? Maybe they're looking at it and like, oh, well, console players can only play at 30 FPS and we don't want them having an advantage, so let's go ahead and lock it. Now, there's no confirmations on whether any of this is actually going to be the case with Sea of Thieves, and I really hope it isn't, and it looks like it was built as a PC game as well alongside it, especially since they were kind of announcing it along as a PC game. And so that actually has me somewhat excited about it. Now, the part that I am also concerned about is possibly the fact of updates. Now, one problem with consoles that has been a problem for a very, very long time, we've actually seen it with other kind of games that have tried cross-platform play, such as Warframe or Rocket League, is the fact that updates normally get delayed on console, and that's mostly because they have to go through a verification process, and they take longer to develop in general senses. And so if you are developing for PC first, your PC is going to most likely have updates ready beforehand. And if you want to make any new updates after that, you're going to have to kind of bundle them all into a single update. So this could mean that Sea of Thieves could only go through maybe a certain amount of updates every few months. Now, it is through Microsoft, and so Microsoft could end up speeding it along through its kind of console architecture, and maybe they are going to kind of work with their servers and things like that, and maybe make it easier in the future to make it so that they can update games more frequently, which would be awesome. And it would make games like Warframe more superior on the Xbox One rather than PS4, and would actually be a huge competitive advantage for them. But chances are they're not. And so basically Sea of Thieves could end up running into a problem to where it won't be getting like micro updates or anything like that. It's only going to be major content updates, which I feel like is something that, especially in a market where you have all these constant kind of multiplayer games constantly coming out and constantly getting updated, I feel like they need that kind of to compete in some senses. Maybe Sea of Thieves is going to release as like a full kind of experience. I'm not 100% sure on everything because I particularly don't like researching games too much before they release because I don't want to like build into hype or anything like that. But having that sort of lack of updates could end up running into some problems, especially if they have early balance problems, for example. There could be a complete balance bug that can't be put to both platforms at the same time, and then all of a sudden, one kind of version is going to end up being both versions, and they're both going to have these problems for a very long time, depending on how long it takes Microsoft to push out updates. Now, the hopes are that Sea of Thieves won't have any of these problems, and I'm actually fairly excited for Sea of Thieves because I want a good pirate game. Reviews and things like that for it so far, or rather early looks and things that people have been talking about, are not saying particularly great things about the game. They are saying it is a game that you'll probably want like a group of friends with and stuff like that, and it could be fun on like a random gaming night. And so that has me a little bit worried for the game, but at the same time, I'm excited for it. We don't have enough pirate games. I feel like we need a lot more better pirate games that are coming out. Not just the ones where you're like going around on a boat and stealing from other boats and stuff like that, but actual ones where you're a pirate, you're running around and you're actually stealing from islands and things like that. Like, I think that is super, super cool. And I like the art style of Sea of Thieves as well. They've actually done a really good job with it so far. So I'm really excited to see what it ends up coming out to, and I'm really excited that it is cross-platform play. I don't actually have any friends left on console anymore. All of them ended up moving to PC. The only one that I do is a dude that only plays Nintendo games on Nintendo consoles, and he still doesn't have a Nintendo Switch because, I don't know, we actually have them available over here. He just hasn't bought one because he doesn't think it's worth it, which is kind of funny considering he's like a Nintendo shill. So that's interesting to see. But regardless, that's a little bit off topic. You know, I personally won't be playing with console players unless I actually find them online, but a bigger gaming community is always a good thing. And so basically when I'm playing on there, it doesn't bother me to be playing with console players. Now, there is some concerns with like mic quality and things like that. I know on PC, people generally have better mics, but there's also the more likelihood of them just not having a microphone at all, because I think consoles kind of release with a microphone. At least that's the impression I get. I haven't bought a console since the Xbox 360 came out, so don't quote me on any of that. But basically, it seems to be common on console games, at least I saw in Gears of War, that people would have microphones, but they wouldn't be very high quality. And that's a little bit upsetting. Whenever I play a console game, I'm always like, what the hell? Why does everyone's microphone sound so terrible? And it's the fact that console microphones sound terrible. So it's not really their fault. It's just the fact that they didn't invest in like one of the special third-party ones. And so, yay, they just kind of get a terrible microphone, which is fine. Not a big deal, though. I think it's awesome, and I really hope that we end up getting like things like voice and text chat and things like that. One thing that I'm concerned about, though, I just now realized, is the fact of text chat. I really, really hope the game has text chat, because some cross-platform games do not have any text chat whatsoever, and I feel like that is kind of eliminating in some senses, such as like games like Overwatch, for example. When you play on console, they don't have the text chat and stuff like that. And I feel like text chat is really, really useful, especially in a lot of games that can get competitive. This is supposed to be a game to where you're playing with a group of people and you are kind of competing for loot and things like that. And so having that sort of text chat, not even just to communicate if you don't have a microphone, but also to like keep notes and things like that. So I'll be like in like League of Legends or something, I'll leave like a timestamp to be like, oh, well, this is when this is going to happen. And so it'll be like, oh, they use their flash or their special ability, and so it'll be off cooldown in 60 or 50 seconds or something like that. You know, that sort of thing. I find it useful, and it's a nice little tool that would kind of make balancing and things like that a little bit more fun. But regardless, that's a little bit, I mean, I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't even know anything about the game necessarily. I mean, I've seen the gameplay stuff that they have, but it's not out yet, so I guess it doesn't really matter yet. It could be a game that could not have any timers at all. But anyways, once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this one. Sorry for rambling a little bit here. It's not a very in-depth topic. I mean, it's literally like a 2-sentence thing. It's like, yay, Sea of Thieves is going to have cross-platform play. So I'm trying to add in a little bit more to it, and I've basically done it the fact that I think Microsoft is pushing towards this direction, and that's really all I got on the topic. So sorry for embellishing a little bit there. I felt like having a short video on it would be a little bit boring. But there's my thoughts on it. I'm excited for Sea of Thieves. Hopefully you guys are as well. I'm looking forward to it, although I probably won't buy it at launch. That's definitely a game that I'm going to wait and see how it ends up going out, and I'm going to see where that cross-platform play goes as well, because I think that idea is cool. And if it's a Play Anywhere title to where you buy it on one platform and you get it on the other, that'd be super cool as well for people that have both platforms. Maybe you have a relative with an Xbox. You can be like, oh, well, we could play Sea of Thieves. You know, I bought it at home and everything, and it's really cool, and you could end up showing it to your buddy or something like that. That's one system that I don't think gets used very often. But I think that would be really cool. And they have other cross-platform games as well. And I really hope Microsoft kind of pushes towards having everything cross-platform play in some form or another. Obviously, don't push it on developers if they can't do it, because that would be bad. But their kind of universal Windows app system that they have going on is making it very, very easy to port games between console and PC. If that ends up pushing anywhere in the future positively, it's going to be really, really great, because Sea of Thieves is supposed to be a Windows Universal app, I believe, just like Gears of War 4 and ReCore and all those. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited to see how it goes out. If it comes out and it sucks, that's going to suck. But at the same time, I think Microsoft's direction with this and Rare's direction with it is a good idea, at least, and I hope it's executed well. Anyways, like I said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. This boss is going to probably kill me, and then I'm just going to go take a nap because, now I'm confused.